Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond-producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109-carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mike Swanson, editor of WallStreetWindow.com. Welcome back to the show, Mike.
Oh, it's great to talk with you.
Mike, we were talking off air about should we talk about Trump and business, and I was mentioning that one of my other guests had just brought up that corporations now in the U.S. are putting together Trump tweet war rooms on how to deal with the situation if they get mentioned in a tweet and what it's doing to their stocks that particular day. Has that made U.S. companies nervous for the most part? They don't know what's going to happen day to day with Trump.
Well, it's kind of funny. The stock market as a whole, of course, has rallied sharply since Trump's election. The Dow going through 20,000, and now this year so far, it's like levitating up, and it hasn't had a 1% down day on the S&P 500 now in over 85 days, which has not happened in like 50 or 60 years. So it's pretty crazy. But then at the same time, as you mentioned, you have these tweets, and you have really, I think, political instability or signs of it, and it's kind of a dichotomy here, because on one hand the market is going up on hopes that Trump is going to be able to stimulate the economy by cutting taxes and launching a government spending infrastructure program. He promised to do that on the campaign trail. And not only that, but as he started to go into the White House and form his transition team, he had a team of advisors that were strong advocates of such a program. People such as Wilbur Ross, who is now the Commerce Secretary, people such as Carl Icahn. Of course, these people also stand to benefit financially themselves if these programs happen, because they own conglomerates that do construction and transportation, all kinds of stuff that would benefit from infrastructure programs. But I was hopeful that finally we would get someone in there that could make some real changes to stimulate the economy. And if you added up the what they were saying they were going to do, the amounts of money they're going to spend, it could have easily added a percent or two to GDP growth every single year. But so far, nothing concrete has happened. And there's a story that makes me wonder if anything ever will when it comes to these spending programs. And if it doesn't, then eventually the stock market will, say, what is this? Looks like incompetence, or nothing's going to happen, or not enough's going to happen, and it'll be kind of the end of the rally. But what concerns me is if you look at the events of the past week, his national security team has been thrown into total chaos. He had this national security advisor, General Michael Flynn, who just resigned. Now, in the United States, they're turning this into a partisan issue. The Democrats are trying to use it to their maximum advantage, and the television sets are echoing the Democrat line, unless you watch Fox News, which is this is about Russia, this is a scandal because Flynn talked to Russians, and this is supposed to be some sort of form of treason. But in reality, there's another dimension to this story, and that's Flynn himself. He's incompetent. He has a staff of 230 people. He was only able to fill a fraction of the spots. 70 were empty. People were even quitting. He's written strange books, making all kinds of weird claims. And I don't need to get into all of it, but to make a simple example of this, today in the Wall Street Journal, there's a story that said that during the transition, General Mattis, who's Secretary of Defense, was deeply concerned about this General Flynn, and Trump's son-in-law went to see him in person to reassure him, and Flynn's just done several things that I think have made the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Mattis concerned, and they helped also to push him out along with other people. I mean, in December we had the CIA essentially leaking things about Trump to the Washington Post. This weekend the leaks were coming from also inside the White House, and not just to the Washington Post, but to the Wall Street Journal, to the New York Times, to internet websites such as Politico. I mean, they're all over the place. And that's, and the National Security team collapsed. He's gone, and now there's a vacuum there that'll be filled up. But what this has to do with the economic policy is it makes me wonder if maybe everything isn't set in stone there either. If this can happen to his national security team, and it doesn't look as if Trump had set ideas, or really maybe not even knowing what he's doing, maybe he doesn't know how yet to effectively run the White House. It's not the same as running a business and so forth. And the Wall Street Journal the other day, there was a story that said that when Trump got into the White House, he had a meeting with his economic advisors, and his top advisor is a man named Gary Cohn, who comes from, of all places, Goldman Sachs, which is a disappointment too, because his name wasn't there when Trump was first forming a team, and now, goodness, the last thing we really need in the United States is more Goldman Sachs people. They were the problem with Hillary Clinton. She was surrounded by them. They funded her, and they're really an albatross on our country with the policies that they've pushed over the years, from everything from the bailouts of 2008 to doing away with the Dodd-Frank legislation, to pushing all these free trade policies that Trump himself does not, has denounced. You can go on and on. So here he is appointing this guy to be his top economic advisor, and the Wall Street Journal reports that he had a meeting about the economy with his assistant Steve Bannon and his son-in-law and this Cohn person, and the Cohn person, Gary Cohn, told Trump that, well, if you do these infrastructure programs, it'll cost a lot of money and create deficits. And according to this story, I think the Wall Street Journal is a reputable source, Trump said, I didn't know that. I didn't know it cost all this money. And then he said to Bannon and the others, why didn't you all tell me this, and got angry. Well, if that's the extent of what's going on in the White House, that's we don't know in the end if we're going to get anything, is almost how I feel. I mean, hopefully, you got to imagine they're going to cut taxes, but who knows what's really going to happen in the coming months or the end of the year. So I've decided I was happy Trump got in there and won, hoping it would make changes, but I'm not going to bet my financial life or investments on hopes that he's going to, turn everything around and fix everything. And I do have long positions in the U.S. stock market, but I'm, not thinking that they're just going to go up forever with no risks. And I'm also believe even more firmly that you got to be diversified, and gold, I think, is probably the best thing to own right now. If you had to pick one thing to own, and I don't think anyone should own one thing, but gold is doing well this year. The gold stocks are once again the top performing sector of the stock market, the entire stock market year to date, after having gone up 50% last year, and right now they're pausing. Gold fell below $1,200 an ounce in December, but it's rallied back up to essentially $1,250 an ounce. It's given up. That's the half of the 50% retracement level from the summer high last year to the December low. It's typically a point in which the market will pause the 50% retracement level. So I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. That pause could last a couple of days or could last a month. There's no way to really predict it, but I think it provides an opportunity to buy gold or some mining shares and then get ready for another run. And we go through 1,300 at some point. That's when people will really start to get excited and be banging on the door, and the real buying will come in. The real buying doesn't happen until after something breaks out and people start to jump on it. You're seeing that in uranium stocks this year. They started moving December, and the more something goes up, the more people want to buy it. But until the move starts, everyone's kind of asleep. So that's when I like to do my buying.
We'll have more with Mike Swanson right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mike Swanson. Mike, President Trump is meeting with major U.S. retailers. Do you think they're asking him, please don't put border taxes on because it'll kill our sales?
Well, I'm sure they're going to say that, but, if he's going to build his wall, he's going to have to get that money somewhere, and he's probably going to do it regardless of what the people tell him. I mean, that's one thing about Trump. I do think, he will do he'll try to do what he says he's going to do. He doesn't care about feedback from other people outside of the White House. I don't see any sign where he's ever said he's made a mistake about anything or at least not publicly. So I wouldn't expect them to be able to convince him of much of anything.
Well, with the infrastructure program and him being shocked, it's going to increase the deficit. Well, don't forget, Trump's pattern has to build something and then declare bankruptcy.
Well, that's the funny thing about him too. Is a year ago, exactly a year ago, I was in Las Vegas, and the Republican primaries were going on, and he was in a fight with Mitt Romney. And they're giving speeches against each other. And I went, and walked, I thought to myself, Trump has got a good chance to get the nomination. And I walked into his hotel and bought his book, I think it was called Make America Great Again, and had a picture of him on the cover, angry. And I read it on the airplane on the way back home. And he made the comment in the book that the United States is on the verge of going bankrupt. He said several times during the election that we have a giant bubble, an accurate statement, he said, in the stock market. But in the book, he said, I'm the perfect person if we do go bankrupt because I can, I know what to do. I know how to get us out of debts or make them go away. So that's good or bad. That is probably true. But I take that as someone that would be willing to, to turn on the printing presses or tell the Federal Reserve to do it if it came down to that. So we're in for some wild times. That's I think what we all like Trump or don't like Trump, and I'm not saying the Democrats are better, but everyone I think knows, regardless of what you think, what side you want to pick or not pick, for that matter, that there is obviously instability in the United States politically, and it started a year ago. The very fact that Trump won the Republican nomination shows that, And it happened in the Democrat Party to a certain extent with the rise of Sanders, and their convention was a mess behind the scenes. They did a good job of making the television show look good, but the actual convention was a nasty affair for the Democrat Party. And we don't know what the future of the Democrat Party is. In the Republican Party, there's all kinds of factions in the Republican Party, and that are fighting Trump too. So that's the situation. And yet, despite all that, and the feeling of unease that does give people, there's people demonstrating think Trump's Hitler. I don't believe that. But then there's the people that hate the demonstrators. And both sides are, getting more belligerent to one another. And yet the stock market right now is total calm. The volatility is super low. The VIX is below 11. Some days it gets below 10.5, which measures the amount of downside risk that, say, people are afraid of in the market. They have no downside fears. The Investors Intelligence Survey shows that just about everyone in it's bullish, over 62%, which is because it hasn't been high in a couple decades. The bears, as of today, are 16%. So there we are. The real dichotomy between the markets and the way people feel and what's going on in the United States. And at some point, I think that's going to change, and the markets will become unstable too. But I can't say I see any signs of that starting next week or next month. But if you think about how markets work, when you have a trend that's gone on for a long time, you can get to a point where it doesn't feel like it's going to ever end. And that's how it was in March of 2009 in the U.S. stock market. Gold in 2011. Yeah, I really think that's a good comparison. Gold in 2011, 2012 went sideways for basically over a year. The volatility in gold shrank, and that was a major top. It took time for it to roll over, but it eventually did. And I kind of think that's where we're in the stock market. We're not going to crash next week, but everyone's falling asleep. And in a year from now, or in the fall, or some point in the future, it's going to go into a bear market. So we got to be on guard and vigilant. It's maybe entertaining to watch Trump or whatever. We're all watching the train wrecks on TV, but we can't be distracted from keeping our eyes on our own finances and in the markets, and not just be super complacent.
Well, if you're waiting for infrastructure, you will wait, because in Canada, Justin Trudeau promised billions in infrastructure, and we're still waiting for these projects to show up as well. Billions promised, but nothing's being constructed yet.
Well, I don't know how it is in Canada, but 2 years ago I was speaking with somebody whose a son is actually a congressman, a Republican congressman. And this guy made a comment to me that Congress can't do anything because they have no money to increase spending with. So there's nothing they can do.
Well,
maybe that's the situation there too.
Mike, always interesting when we chat.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking with you too.
My guest has been Mike Swanson, editor of WallStreetWindow.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. On YouTube, we're Talk Digital Network. Questions can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.